There's a shot about 4 minutes into the last act of this finale that I've now watched maybe 15 times, and still I can't get past it. Cable is leading the charge on Genosha, and coming in behind him is a legion of Sentinel Squad One fighters. Sentinels on Genosha. His mother died there. Madeline Pryor was killed in that massacre by machines that looked exactly like the ones flying in formation behind our boy. And nobody says anything. The Sentinels get called in as a tactical fact, okay? Storm gets a line in about being careful with the pilots inside them, and the episode sort of just keeps moving. That's not a plot mistake, okay? That's, I don't know, somebody really had to decide not to write that line. Somebody had to decide not to board that look. So the question isn't what went wrong in the finale. The question is, what kind of season produces that 4 minutes from the end? What's up, my know-it-alls? All right, the one I promised, okay, on Wednesday, special edition of The Files, all 9 episodes of season 2, and there's definitely a number at the end, and I'll tell you now, I came in with an answer in my pocket, and I threw it out about 40 minutes into the rewatch. Receipts on the table, same as every Files, all right, guys? So, the answer I came in with was rushed. And it isn't a stupid answer. It's what a lot of you said this week, and it's what I'd have told you Tuesday. LJ Kelty said this season felt like X-Men with hyperactivity disorder, which I haven't been able to shake. 9 episodes instead of 10, everybody knows that number. Here's the problem with it. Rushed is a word about absence. It describes the thing that should be here but isn't. And yeah, the season's full of those, okay? But go look at what got made. 3 organizations, X-Corp, X-Force, X-Factor, each with a roster and a base and a chain of command, a government apparatus, a celestial with a name and a mythology and a visual language nobody had animated before, a retcon that turns resurrection into a possession, a hybrid villain who didn't exist 8 episodes ago. That's an enormous amount of new construction. Rushed productions cut. This one kept adding. So this season had the resources to design a Celestial, and it didn't have 30 seconds for Cable to look at a Sentinel? That's not what I would consider to be a problem with the calendar. Calendars don't work like that. Days of Past Future, a force to be reckoned with. Rise of Apocalypse, 1 and 2, first 3 on July 1st, the 4th on the 8th. Best 4 consecutive episodes this show's made, and I'll go further than I did at the time. I would argue better than anything in season 1. All right. And here's the specific thing I want you watching for, because I feel like it's the whole case. These episodes build. Magneto dies early. Xavier watches it happen, and the show refuses to tell you what that means. It makes you carry it for weeks. Apocalypse gets set up as the thing you don't beat, and it lands because Larry Houston, who ran the original series in '92, has said Apocalypse was always the one villain they couldn't overpower. The show knows you know that, and it plays off it instead of explaining it. And that's expensive storytelling. I mean expensive to draw, expensive in screen time, which is the only currency a 9-episode season actually has. Paul D5185 said in my comments that the first 4 were amazing. The show was on fire, and then something shifted. I had almost that exact sentence in my notes before I read his. He's right, and you can date it. Episode 5, Weapon X Lies and DVDs, July 15th. I made a whole video about this one day. This day, okay, when it dropped, the adamantium comes back. It isn't explained, and I said I was with that because that was ultimately the show swinging, or at least making big swings, I think, and that it ultimately means that the show thinks that we can keep up as the audience. I still think that was the right call based on what I knew then. But watch the shape the season ultimately changes into here. Okay, through episode 4, everything is pointed forward. Episode 5 stops and sort of sidesteps. It's a good episode. It's a very good episode. Standing in a hallway. Episode 6, Danger.exe, July 22nd. Danger Room episode done 100 times. This is a solid version. Then the post-credit, and I stood up. Apocalypse in Athens, Gambit's corpse, the playing card turning into Tarot, wrapping the body, Horseman death, black skin, white hair, lifted straight out of 2006 and put on screen without blinking. I want that reaction on the record because I'm about to be really hard on where it went. Strangeland Savage Heart, July 29th, Savage Land episode, and the best 5 minutes of writing in the season. Nightcrawler stands in front of the Acolytes and argues for the life of Graydon Creed, a man who built a career of hating mutants. He doesn't change Creed's mind. Creed turns around and shoots Exodus practically on the spot. But Kurt changes the room, and Colossus quietly walks away from Magneto's people over what he watched. Nobody announces any of it. There's no speech. You watch it happen. You understand it later, in a jungle, in an episode with dinosaurs in it. Hang on to that scene for me. The Dead Man's Hand, August 5th, and Survival of the Fittest, August 12th. And here the season stops building anything at all and just starts spending. Kandra shows up, having never been mentioned, dies, and a gem comes out of her and goes into Rogue. It does nothing. When Rogue gets her power in the finale, it comes from a bargain with Essen the Searcher, not from the gem. Don Mega PLP asked it flat out in my comments, what was the point of killing Kandra and implanting that gem? Why did it do nothing? And said they'd turn Rogue into a Deus Ex Machina. And that's the thread. A character introduced, killed, and harvested, and it never comes up again. Gambit gets redefined twice more. Dead, then death, then vessel, with, then fused. 4 versions of one character across 4 episodes, and the interesting ones on screen about 3 minutes. Okay, Illuminate 8321 found the real cost of it. They did the entire death credit scene last season. He said, for Gambit to essentially just be Apocalypse instead of being his own character. And Apocalypse gets extracted into a gem and handed to Cable. Okay, Gem, Grave, same outcome. He's off the board until some future writer decides he wants him back. 2 seasons of you can't beat him, and he leaves as an object in somebody's pocket. G-Money84 asked, how you build up Apocalypse just for him to go out like Jafar? And I've been trying to beat that line for 3 days. So, I've got a season that builds beautifully for 4 episodes, and then stops building and starts spending. And the question that I could not answer until until yesterday is why a production does that. Because that's not a writing failure. Writers don't forget how to write in week 5. It's a resourcing decision, and somebody made it. Apocalypse Zero said it in my comments, and I answered him at the time, and I want to give him full credit now because he got there before I did. He said the show was rushed, perhaps due to new management or budgeting, and I told him it wasn't far off, okay? Because he's not far off. He's probably the closest anybody's got. So here's what I think happened, and I'm going to walk you through it the way I'd walk through any production, okay? When I was a line producer, I'd look at it. Bo DeMail on the record, September 24th and 25th, 2024, quote, they're rewriting the season because they blew up episode 10, which paid off a season-long mystery of clues and foreshadowing that led to Onslaught. And separately, we know this whole season existed in Animatics before he left. Sit with that for a second, because if you don't work in animation, the word animatics sounds small, and it is small, but animatics is ultimately the entire show. Every shot boarded, every scene timed, dialogue recorded and cut against picture. That's the season, built in cheap form. And that's really where the money goes on an animated production. You spend it in development up front before a single finished frame exists. Then he's out. And they choose to regroup. Internal politics, studio politics, pick whichever reason you like. I genuinely don't care which one it was. They kill episode 10. And they kill Onslaught. And my read on Onslaught, for whatever it's worth, is that Onslaught was never meant to be season 3. Onslaught was the on-ramp, okay? Onslaught is what takes you to Age of Apocalypse, and Age of Apocalypse is the season you actually build. Now, if you retool an animated season after Animatics, you're not doing a rewrite, okay? A rewrite is a writer and a weekend. You're reboarding, retiming, re-recording, re-voicing, re-cutting. You pay for a chunk of that season a second time. And when a show pays twice, here's what survives and what doesn't. And this is the part that finally explained the finale to me. The design survives. The Celestial survives. The factions, they survive. The character redesigns survive because all of that was already bought. It's sunk. Throwing it out doesn't get you your money back. It just means you have nothing. Okay? Who gets cut is the building, because building is a live invoice. Okay? Connective tissue is 30 seconds here, 40 seconds there, and every one of those is a new board, a new shot, a new line in a booth. It's the last money you spend, and it's the easiest money not to spend. And nobody in a budget meeting has ever had to defend cutting a scene where two guys walk down a hallway. That's the season. It's over-engineered because the engineering was already paid for. It's underbuilt because the building is the only thing left you can afford to lose. That's why the Celestial and the missing reunion scene are in the same episode. They were never competing for the same money. There's a piece of this I can't stop chewing on, okay? The post-credits of this season sets up a story about Nightcrawler's family, and Nightcrawler is dead. I get into that one and what I think Onslaught was actually for in this week's Sidebar for Members. If that's your thing, I really hope you're going to join me over there. Now, if I'm right about all that, and there should be exactly one thing in this season that came through clean, one thread that didn't need episode 10 and didn't have to be re-aimed. It's Nightcrawler. It landed. And it landed on a lot of you hard. Top comment on my final video right now is Ken Biggs, 156 likes, and he's just saying he teared up when Kurt showed up, and that Kurt's such a pure character that he did it with a smile on his face. Okay, Scholar Hobbits found the reason it worked for them, which is that at the top of episode 8, Kurt hugs Rogue and promises her everything will be okay, and then he goes and makes sure that's true. Kurt's arc runs from season 1, episode 5, unbroken, straight through the Acolyte scene I told you to hang on to, all the way to the sacrifice. It never pointed at Apocalypse, or it never pointed at Onslaught. Nothing had to be unplugged. That's the control. That's what everything else in the season would have looked like if it hadn't been re-aimed halfway. And here's what I actually want to say, and it's the thing under all of it. There are two camps watching this show. There's the camp that says it's a kid's show, take it easy, and honestly, fine. Okay, no argument. Watch it, whatever you want, whichever way you want. And there's the camp that takes it seriously, that's been reading these books for 30 years and watched season 1 and thought, oh, they're going to treat this like it's worth something. The second camp is the one that got hurt this season. And not because the show got bad, because the show stopped showing its work. Canuck Duke put that in my comments in 5 words, and I wish I'd had them Tuesday. The show isn't showing its work. What you cut when you cut connective tissue is the visible evidence that somebody cared. Okay, ultimately how you got from one thing to the next. That's all connective tissue is. It's care, made out of screen time. Season 3's been confirmed and dated for 2027. Season 4 is in development for 2028. Brad Winterbaum said both of those to Collider on August 6th. And on paper, that's everything I wanted. It's timed. It's the thing this season didn't have. Except time was never the problem, and that's what this whole video has been. They've had time, they spent it on the wrong half. A calendar doesn't tell you whether the next one gets built or just gets designed again, and nothing I watch this season tells me which way that goes. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm in. I want to be clear about that because it's not where the angry version of this video lands, okay? I love this show. I love the artwork, the ideas it's putting up are good ideas, and I'll be here in 2027 on day 1. I just don't trust everybody behind the wheel yet. That's not the same as being out. It's the difference between showing up excited and showing up hopeful. And I'd rather be excited. And that's the reason I'm going back to 1992. Mike Case 2372 put it in my comments better than I'm about to. He said the show outran its own context. It always moved fast, but it got away with it before because the context was already there and it was burning background the original show and the comics had built. That's alone. The show that made the deposit is the 92 series, and I want to go look at that account because a lot of what this season couldn't build in 9 episodes, that show built in 3 week by week, 22 minutes at a time on a budget you wouldn't believe. Okay, it's not a nostalgia lap. It's the control group. So there you go. Now you know. And knowing half the battle, you're halfway to being a know-it-all yourself. What is the know-it-all index for X-Men 97 Season 2? I had this at an 8 when I sat down, and honestly, that was the number for how much I enjoyed watching it. Then I went and counted, and the counting is what moved me, not the finale. To count, because I'm going to remember this season in pieces, and I can't hand it to somebody in 3 years and tell them it holds together, which puts Season 2 of X-Men 97 firmly at a 7.5 out of 10. They paid for this season twice, and we got the half they'd already bought. All right, your turn, and give me the real answer, not the polite one. Are you in for Season 3, or are you waiting to see who's driving? And if you've been in the comments this season, thank you. And I mean that as more than a pleasantry, okay? Most of what's in this video came from you, by name. All right, X-Men 97 is done for now. Wednesdays aren't. Next Wednesday, 1992, Episode 1. All right, guys, I hope you'll be there with me, and I cannot wait to see you then. Never forget, everyone loves a know-it-all. Bye, guys.